So in a couple of weeks, we're going to start our bowls, bottles, and vase sets. So we're skipping ahead just a little bit. I'm just going to give you a preview of what you got to look forward to. So when I start out, I think, what am I going to do? I'm going to throw 2 bowls, I'm going to throw a bottle, and I'm going to throw a vase in 20 minutes. And then we'll have the last few minutes to do whatever. When I throw a bowl, a nice soup cereal bowl for me is 1.7 pounds of clay. Okay? So I'm going to come over. This clay has a little bit of red clay mixed into it. Hopefully that's not a big deal. And I didn't see a wire tool. Is there a wire tool right in that bucket right there in that box? Oh, right there. Perfect. So I'm going to come right here. Will you just throw that to me? That's 3.4 pounds, which cut in half would be what? 1.7. Lucky me. So I'm just going to cut it in half. It's not going to be exactly 1.7, but I lied. It is 1.7. That says 1/8, so it'll be okay. So I'm going to go more in detail later when we do demos. But this is how we start by throwing a bowl. And there's some reasons why we've done what we've done up to this point, so you can be ready for this. Okay. Ooh, that's hot. I'm going to start this. I'm going to seal it. I'm going to cone it. And I'm going to bring it down. From there, I'm just going to refine it, pushing in and down and down until that stops fighting me. Now I'm going to open this up, create a little knob, and push into the center and then straight down. I want to leave a decent thickness on the bottom for a bowl. So I want to be about twice that thick. Twice as thick as a wood rib, or a wood knife, sorry. Because I'm going to trim it. We're going to talk about that when I do my demo. Now, I push down. For doing a cylinder, I'm going to pull straight towards me, right? Create a flat bottom, flat sides. I'm going to change that on a bowl. I'm going to pull towards me and swoop up. So I'm going to start creating my bowl shape. So I'm going to pull towards me, and now with my thumb, I'm going to lift up. I'm just going to hit this rim, make it nice and round. Nice and slow movements. So now I'm going to take the water out just like we did before. But the inside's going to have start to have a roundness to it. Now I'm going to switch over here, and this is why going with our hand position here is so important, because when my hands are together and I'm pushing, this time I'm going to push under and then out, and I'm going to lift that clay between my hands up like that. The outside stays at an angle, but it's straight. The inside has a nice little curve to it. So we're starting to get our bowl shape, right? Then we're going to come in here. I'm going to do one more pull. Grab that clay, push out just a little bit, and then guide it up. And if you've been doing this out here or over here, or even like this, you're going to have problems because you're not actually guiding the clay, you're letting the clay guide itself. That's why we want our hands together. All right, I'm going to take the water out. We talked about using our metal rib and practicing that before and getting comfortable with it. This is where I use my metal rib. That round part creates the inside of our bowl. So I'm going to come in here with my left hand, 7 o'clock, It's gonna hit at 5 o'clock. I'm gonna go at the bottom. I'm just gonna compress this towards the center. I'm gonna take a little bit of water out. Controlling that wheel speed towards the center. And then slowly out. And as I do this, I'm barely pushing, just allowing it to compress the clay. And it gives us a nice curve. Okay, if we do it really well, it's a parabola, right? If you want to go math. And you can actually do a vector on this. I don't know what's called a vector. You can actually map out your parabola. Now I'm going to use the flat part. So I use the round part on the inside, the flat part on the outside. It's just going to hit the back underneath there and just gently move up. That compresses the back. Will you grab me a paper towel, please? Okay, while she's grabbing a paper towel, we talked about using our wood knives. We're going to use a wood rib on this. Thank you. And the wood rib is going to clean up underneath here. And I use the wood rib because it fits underneath that bowl really well, where a wood knife doesn't fit under there as well. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to pierce that. I'm holding it nice and steady. Pierce that in. Clean that up there. Once you rib it, do not add water to it. If you do add water to it, you need to go back and rib it again, because it being dry on the bottom is going to be so important here in just a second. All right, I'm going to take my paper towel. I'm going to fold it in half. The fold is going to go towards me. I'm just going to gently push down on my rib. Okay, we use paper towels because if they end up in our buckets, it's okay. All right, I am going to grab my board and I'm going to take this off. Almost all the boards fit on our buckets right there. It's a great place to put those boards. Yeah, I think you can see that. And we're going to cut. Push down, pull towards me with my elbows going out. You can or don't have to have your wheel spinning. I like it spinning at a slow speed. Pull towards me, pull out. Make sure my hands are dry and clean. Make sure that my piece is cut in and dry. I'm going to grab down at the bottom, twist, and pull that bowl straight off like that. Okay. Do another one real quick, and then we'll move on, because I have just a few minutes. Do you remember me doing the demo when we talked about throwing on the wheel? Okay. When it comes to learning how to teach, I've always done it one way. And I've never done these pre-demos before. And my hope is that in the long run, some of these pre-demos get you excited to pay attention during the actual demo. Lift that up. But even more importantly, that it will affect your learning in the long term. Because that's actually what's most important. Not my demos, but your ability to take the information and apply it the best you can. Whether it's on a quiz, or whether it's applying it here on the wheel, or applying it there. And I really do want you to learn the best. When I throw bowls, a lot of them, I will wedge up about 25 or 30 1.7 pounds of clay chunks, and I'll come back, and the first probably 3 or 4 are going to be my throwaways. I probably won't throw them away. They'll just be single bowls. But by the time I get to about 4, then my rim's a little cracky. When I get to about 4, I kind of get in the rhythm, and they all start to be about the same shape and size, which is kind of nice. Okay, we'll cover all these steps better later. And a bowl. But do you see how the 2 bowls are different? Okay. Perfect. But you get into it, and then they start throwing them pretty similar to the same. All right, let's do a vase real quick. A vase, and you don't have to start out with 3 pounds of clay. You can start out with 1.5 to 2 pounds. I'll get you all your requirements later. Oh, weird bump going on. We're going to, sometimes with more clay, I do need to cone it up and down a couple of times. And then we'll just work through that. Holding steady. Sometimes we get these bumps on the outside. You just need to push them and get rid of them. Okay, I'm going to open it. I'm going to pull towards me. And I go straight into a lift up. You don't have to. You can stop and go, and get everything set. But there's something for me about pulling and then letting that momentum just lift it straight up. Well, straight up, I mean into a cone. So with a vase, I'm going to get it as tall as I can without going too thin. And then I'm going to set where I want my neck to be. So it's going to flare out a little bit, but where the neck comes in, that's where I want to set. And then I'm going to add a little bit of shape to it. Clean that up. We're going to use our metal rib again. You can use the flat side or the round side. I like the round side. I'm just going to support on the inside, and I'm going to compress this. If you don't compress it, when you stretch it out, it has a bigger chance of flopping or tearing. But this takes those clay particles and pushes them together. Okay. I'm going to trim off the bottom just a tiny bit. Saves me a little bit of headache later. Now, with a bowl, I pushed out and my inside hand is below. With a cylinder, I push in, my inside hand is above. So as I push, my inside hand is above. To come out, I'm going to do both. I'm going to push out with my inside hand below, and then I'm going to equalize them in the middle and then come back so that my outside hand is going to be below. Whichever direction you're going, if I'm going out, my inside hand is below. If I'm going in, my outside hand is below. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to grab that clay, I'm going to push out. Inside hand is below. Get about to where the middle is. I equalize that. Outside hand slips underneath. And we lift up to there, and we get a little bit of shape going on. If we push out too far, our vase slumps. So want to keep nice angles on there. Use the flat part to rib that. And I'm going to flip it and use the round part up top here. Kind of a thin spot right there. Right there. So I'll just be extra careful. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my rim. This makes it a nice, smooth rim. Allows the glaze to hold on to it. Now that could be considered a vase, okay? My definition of a vase is where the opening and the body are pretty similar. Where a bottle, the openings can be much smaller. But I am gonna just come in right here. I'm gonna hold my knuckle underneath. And I'm just gonna bend this out. Just a little bit. See that thin spot? And then you kind of have that classic vase. That way the flowers can lay down just a little bit, okay? And then the middle ones can stand up. And you can come in here and play around with that. Do all kinds of whatever's on that. I'm gonna clean up the bottom just like with a bowl. You never want to take this off. The bigger you go, the harder it is to pull off. Something we're not going to do today, but we will do on the day of our demo, is I'm going to show you how to trim these so you can kind of see start to finish. Down at the bottom. And we'll show you how to trim all of those. All right, let's do one more, and then you can turn in your mugs if you need to. I'll start unloading the kiln. Some of your mugs are in there. Seal that up, cone it up, bring it down. I'm gonna cone it up one more time, about halfway. It's either a weird chunk of clay in there or I just didn't wedge it very well. We're gonna go with I didn't wedge it well. All right, to create a bottle, I'm gonna open this up just like a cylinder. A little bit of a wobble there. Pull that out. So I'm just gonna hold that, push in, pull out just a little bit. And now I'm going to lift it. So as I lift, I want to make sure that my upper area stays a little thicker and that the whole body is uniform. If I have a thin spot on a bottle, it's for sure going to slump. Always slowly let go. Again, we'll do some note taking, and I'll be very specific on what your steps are. Rib that. I could add some shape to it. For time, I'm just going to go to the bottle neck and not the bottom shape. So to create this, I'm going to cone it. I could use 2 big C's, 2 little C's, a combination, and I usually use a combination. So I'm going to push down at the bottom, in and up, down at the bottom, in and up, and do a little pull. We call this collaring or choking it in. But you see how on a bottle, the opening is going to be significantly smaller than the body, where on a vase, it's going to be just a little bit smaller. Sometimes not even smaller, sometimes it's bigger than the body. So for the most part, bottles are decoration. Okay, you can fill it with something. But if you make the opening too small, it's gonna be really hard to fill it with anything. Finish this up, just for giggle's sake. Always trim under. If you don't trim it in, you're gonna have a really hard time getting it off. And you're gonna have to trim it up. And like on a bottle, I don't wanna trim this very much. I wanna barely touch it. So I'm gonna make sure that that's pretty cleaned up. There's all kinds of fun things you can do even at this stage. Come in and play around with it there. I didn't grab a needle tool, but I will just use my mallet tool. I'm just going to cut the top. Nice and flat. Got yourself a fun little bottle. Okay, these are all things that will be options for your final wheel throne project, which we will start in a couple of weeks after we get done with our mugs and still learning on the wheel. Set it there. That's all I got. The rest of the day, you have 6-7 minutes. If you need to turn in your mugs, that's great. Otherwise, just kind of chill in your seats, and we will start stuff on Thursday.
If our pieces are clear plates, can we take them?
Yeah, there's an assignment on Google Classroom for you.
You need me to press stop?
Yes, please, thank you.